Well, Brawler fans, it's finally here. Marvel.mu and Tribute Games' Cosmic Invasion has stormed through our galaxy after many teases and demos throughout the summer, and I'm here with a full review of the final version. Having been a big fan of Tribute's previous releases like Flinthook, Panzer Paladin, and of course their biggest hit, TMNT Shredder's Revenge, I've been hyped for this one for a while. So let's see if their sophomore beat-em-up will make true believers out of us all, or be banished to the negative zone. So what is Marvel Cosmic Invasion all about? Well, in terms of villainy, a fusion of the Green Goblin and Ultron, Annihilus, is running roughshod throughout the universe, assimilating and mind-controlling everything in his path thanks to his endless army of insectoid parasites. Since this is a huge inconvenience to pretty much every being in the cosmos, the Watcher reaches out to 15 different Marvel heroes, and in a few cases anti-heroes, to put a stop to Annihilus's simple but really effective scheme. And yeah, you heard that right. Cosmic Invasion gives you 15 playable characters in the base game, which has to be some type of record for an officially licensed brawler. Now, I don't have a ton of time today, so I'm not gonna go through every single one, but what am I talking about? Of course I will! We have, of course, the living legend Captain America, the man who builds stuff in caves with boxes of scraps, Iron Man, Peter Parker, the mediocre Spider-Man, then his best friend, the brain-eating lethal protector Venom. Then we have the sensational and fourth wall-breaking She-Hulk, a personal favorite of mine, the mighty king of Wakanda himself, Black Panther, the mistress of the elements, the all-powerful Storm, who is also accompanied by her fellow mutant, the leader of the X-Men himself, Wolverine. After that, we blast off into the more cosmic side of the Marvel Universe, starting with the Eternal Phoenix, the rambunctious Rocket Raccoon, the horse-faced Thor's stand-in Beta Ray Bill, Norrin Radd, the Silver Surfer, Nova, who plays a pretty sizable role as he would with anything involving Annihilus, and then we have the two most interesting picks, Titan Kree hybrid Phyla Vel, and then finally, Judge, Jury, and Executioner Frank Castle, the Cosmic Ghost Rider. That's quite the eclectic roster to choose from, and you'll have to select 2 different heroes to brawl through 15 levels of mighty Marvel mayhem that takes place in all corners of the galaxy. Like New York City, of course, but also more exotic locales like the Savage Land, Genosha, Clintar, and even the Kree homeworld, and lots more I won't spoil here. You can also team up with 3 other friends locally or online, which means since you have to take 2 different heroes for your team, you can tag between 8 Marvel characters can all briefly appear on the same screen during the action, which in video game form at least really encapsulates the epic event feel that Cosmic Invasion is going for. Of course, there's going to be plenty of villains to fight too, and just like the heroes, they run the gamut from street level like the Beetle, mutants like Sauron, then Avenger ne'er-do-wells like MODOK, not that version, before graduating to again cosmic level threats, until you come face to face with Annihilus himself in the final climactic showdown. So that's a brief explanation of what you'll be getting yourself into with Marvel Cosmic Invasion, and it's a pretty impressive package. But now do allow me to articulate what I really loved about this ode to 90s superhero beat-em-ups, and the very few things I found were a tiny bit lacking. Obviously, there's a ton to like, love, and gush over with the work Tribute Games has done here. As you can plainly see, Cosmic Invasion has incredibly lush, expressive pixel art, which, if it isn't clear, pays tribute to the 2D games of the 90s, specifically the likes of X-Men Arcade and pretty much all of Capcom's superhero series of fighting games. But strangely, it seems to ignore the crown jewel of all Marvel games,
Marvel Comics Avengers in Galactic Storm!
Seriously though, you can't help but look at Spider-Man, Wolverine, and one of the most impressive characters in the roster, Venom, who morphs himself into all types of crazy stuff, and not think fondly back to Capcom's original designs and animations. This is, suffice it to say, a great thing, and the same can also apply to the backgrounds, that are not only colorful, varied, and fun to look at, but also chock full of some really fun cameos that you should definitely keep your eyes peeled for. I can understand, though, that some people may not really dig the more truncated, cartoony designs to some of the heroes, but I understand that the makers probably wanted to keep the game appealing to the younger set as well, which is fair because so many parents had fun playing Shredder's Revenge with their kids. It's not really a problem though, because the action never lets up and is highlighted by some truly painful looking moves, like She-Hulk's super attack and throws, as well as Cosmic Ghost Rider blasting away with his plasma Hellfire gun. So while the overall visual presentation is great, modeled very closely after the stellar work Tribute did on Shredder's Revenge, the soundtrack also bears mentioning. Again, if you are familiar with any of the rousing, iconic themes for Captain America or Spider-Man in the Marvel vs. games, the tunes in Cosmic Invasion will absolutely have you nodding wistfully. And while the soundtrack here doesn't quite hit the highs that the Heroes in the Half Shell did, thanks in part to the lack of lyrics and a little less variety, it still gets you pumped up to pummel some insectoid scum. And that leads me to the next element I loved, the pummeling itself. If you saw my review of Double Dragon Gaiden, you'll know I was a big fan of the tag mechanic, and Cosmic Invasion does something really similar, in that as long as you have two available heroes, you can swap between each one at any time, to extend combos on the ground or in the air, and even call in their super moves, which helps during those tougher segments. While you can coast through the first few missions playing it like a regular brawler, once you start having to beat bigger and tougher bosses, switching between characters becomes almost integral, as two heroes can dish out way more pain than just one. Thankfully, tagging in is as simple as pressing a single button, and after a while, you'll find yourself experimenting with a bunch of different combinations in addition to the varied amount of moves each hero has. Some characters can fly, others can do a defensive block which leads to a parry, while more nimble heroes can dodge behind their foes, but all of them can perform pop-up attacks, charge strikes, and their flashy screen-clearing supers. Finally, each character also has a unique passive ability you can unlock which will buff their next attack, give them extra special gauge, or produce elemental effects like poison or fire damage. So, the combat system, like TMNT before it, is easy to learn but offers just enough depth to keep things interesting, especially when you throw in your tag partner or using various elements of the stage, like pits, mounted machine guns, or other traps which can help you out in a pinch. Naturally, after clearing all 15 stages, you're gonna ask yourself, well, what else is there to do? And this is where Cosmic Invasion really makes the most of its brawling gameplay, and offers a bit more than what was available in TMNT at launch. As you punch, kick, blast, and web your way through Earth and various other planets, you'll find partially invisible cosmic cubes that are hidden somewhere in each stage. Hit one and you've collected it, which can then be redeemed at the mighty Cosmic Matrix, a grid which dolls out various rewards of various types. The most desirable one, of course, is brand new palettes for your heroes, which aren't just simple recolors, as some completely change up your hero to replicate legacy eras and looks. You can have Wolverine in his yellow and blue or X-Force studs, while Spidey can don the symbiote. She-Hulk will go red, or dress up Storm with pretty much all of her iconic looks, although sadly, no mohawk. All these are really fun to collect and wear, with each hero having up to 8, with the final one being unlocked only when you've completely leveled up that character. There's a few other fun things to find in the Cosmic Matrix as well. Arcade modifiers let you turn on all sorts of neat effects in this more hardcore stripped down version of the main campaign, letting you make it easier, harder, or slightly more wacky. Nova Core files are basically brief lore entries telling you about every single hero, villain, homeworld, or enemy. So if you have no idea who or what the Destromundo is, this will fill you in. The last thing I really liked about the game though is the very smooth, gradual raising of the difficulty level as you make your way through the main campaign. There's no easy or normal difficulty setting you can turn on at the outset, so Tribute made sure to design things to get progressively more and more challenging. And honestly, even with a 2-hero team, I found this a bit harder than Shredder's Revenge. This is also where some replay value comes in, because you have to grind a little bit on older levels to get your heroes up to max level if you want to stand a chance against the tougher bosses. But conversely, I didn't have to grind too much to the point it became monotonous either, which is a testament to the designers over at Tribute. So, overwhelmingly, my experience playing Cosmic Invasion was very positive, but there is one little asterisk with that last point I just mentioned, along with a few other tiny picking of the nits I'll talk about next. Like I explained, your heroes level up as you play them, gaining more HP, more special move gauge, a unique passive skill, etc. So it behooves you to focus on just a few of them, maybe 4 or so if you want a decent shot at beating the game. Now, each level has 3 different challenges, but unlike Shredder's Revenge, which had a lot of generic ones like destroying this amount of objects or this number of enemies, Cosmic Invasion has a ton of hero-specific challenges. This is cool on one hand because it nudges you to experiment with the whole cast, but if you haven't leveled up those heroes, you're going to have a bad time in the later levels, as you'll have way less HP and special move gauge, making things way tougher than they should be. Furthermore, each level seems to be modeled in such a way through both these challenges and cutscenes that there is a recommended or canon set of heroes you should be taking into battle. So if you want to completely do absolutely everything, expect to have to play every level at least twice or more. Personally, after a while, I just stopped paying attention to the challenges and just focused on playing as my most leveled up heroes, but your mileage may vary on this particular design choice. Now, going back to the cutscenes, I also have a small issue with them as well. Not how they look, of course, because there's clearly been some great comic book inspiration throughout, but more how many of them feel disconnected to the overall story. The Watcher and Nova are supposed to be the anchor beings of this particular campaign, but they only appear like 2 or 3 times in total. Then you'll just suddenly be on Clintar, which really doesn't have much to do with Annihilus at all, and you'll be recommended to select Black Panther for some reason. Okay, and this is just one of a few examples. Some heroes dip into the story just once and are never heard from again until the ending cutscene, which, I mean, I know it's a beat 'em up and therefore the story isn't the most important thing, but if it's a Marvel game, I would have liked a little more cohesion with why we are suddenly at location A and controlling hero B. Some stages are woven into the plot very well, while others are just left at the wayside. One last tiny problem I had with the plot though is that Annihilus himself doesn't actually appear until the very end. You see him on the title screen, sure, but he doesn't really make his presence known throughout 95% of the game, which is, I don't know. I would have preferred if he appeared in an earlier stage or two, doing a big, cool, intimidating villain thing to raise the stakes, instead of just being like, oh yeah, I'm Annihilus, by the way. I just think the story could have framed him in a more imposing way, since he is the big bad and all. My final nitpick, though, does go back to the combat, and this is just, a subjective ass me thing here, but it always feels odd not being able to walk up to an enemy, grab, and then throw them, as there is no default way to do this with every character. I just like having that option to direct a grabbed enemy into whatever direction I want, and several times I wished I could, but the vast majority of characters in the game simply don't have this skill. Thankfully, a few actually do have special moves that act as throws, although as far as I could test, it seemed limited to just Wolverine, She-Hulk, and Venom. But, at least that's something. Yeah, I told you I really was going to have to search for things that were even remotely negative with this one. But with all that icky stuff out of the way, let's wrap this one up. So, as most of us probably expected, Marvel Cosmic Invasion is another great title from Tribute Games and .mu, proving to be a worthy follow-up to TMNT, a quality game itself, as well as acting as a love letter to all things superheroic. If I was to give it a score, 4.5 Cosmic Cubes out of 5. It remains to be seen, though, what type of post-launch support the game will have, like more characters or modes, but I am 100% going to be there if and when that gets announced. And, technically, the Predator is now a Marvel character too, so, hint hint, guys, that'd be really cool. I'm just saying.
Let's go, bub.
Anyway, let me know your thoughts on Cosmic Invasion in the comments below, what other characters you'd like to see in the future, etc. Until then, I'm McMuscles, and I'll see you next time.